Hello everyone, welcome to this new season of Zoom In with Ndua Bekima. Today we have the distinguished honor of a very distinguished guest, Barrister Akere Muna, 2018 presidential candidate for the presidency of Cameroon. Welcome, Barrister.
Well, thank you, Ndua. Thank you for having me.
So great to have you. Welcome back to your former
Exactly.
the DMV area.
DMV, that's correct, yes.
Okay, so we're going to zoom in today. I've been researching for the interview and I got a lot of questions. People who are talking about a political dynasty.
Yeah.
So your family, the Muna family, your father was a former prime minister.
Yeah.
And they're like, we thank you for your service, like the Clintons, the Bushes. Yeah. It's turning into a dynasty. So what do you have to say to them?
Well, you know, I think everybody has their own path to frame life. And it is normal that you're inspired by the family you are in, which really is historic. You even go to our villages, the tendency is that if you follow a blacksmith or a carpenter or a farmer, that's what is closer to you and that's what you learn. I'm just coming from Houston, where I met an incredible Cameroonian gentleman who is a captain in the police force, and he has only one son, and his son is in the police force. So I think that, you know, there's a tendency for you to do something close to what your parents do, because that's all you see, and it inspires you. So that is so, but that is not enough. You have to be able, on your own, to free your own path, to make your own mark. So yes, I'm grateful for the parents I had, but I think that what I'm doing is drastically different from what my father did, internationally and even locally. So that's all I can say to that. Well, dynasty, I don't know. You have to work hard. If working hard means creating a dynasty, so be it, really.
Thank you. So we asked for questions from the community.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that some people had was that your candidacy, you have no political base.
Correct.
So it kind a little bit of Macronesque, a la Macron.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a new republic. How do you plan to pull that off?
Well, listen, you know, I've been a lawyer for 40 years. And also, I've been in Cameroon for a while. As a lawyer, as head of the Bar Association, mixing with many different groups and associations. I created the very first solid association against corruption, which is Transparency International, that causes you to mix with the people. So I don't think I'm unknown. The only difference is that I'm non-partisan. But if you want to talk about political party, as it were, I drafted the statutes of the SDF in '92. I was active. I was active in the electoral process. I was active in tallying the votes. I was active in looking at all the legal aspects of elections. So I do have that background of experience. So how am I going to pull this off? It's through the Now movement that I've created, which is a movement that is really reposing on youth. And it takes from 10 to 50 people to create a group. And it's spreading, I dare say, like wildfire. It's non-partisan. It is driven by a simple principle to get people to register, to vote, and to be there to guarantee their vote. And the guys are motivated because I'm promoting politics where the people are the center of it. And you see guys who are 22, 23, 24, now thinking seriously about becoming local councillors. So it's a new dynamic.
So I'm happy that you said that about getting people to register to vote, because as you know, the giant elephant in the room, Ambazonia movement, is asking people to boycott the upcoming 2018 elections.
Correct.
So how are you combating that ideology and that philosophy?
Well, you know, I listen to everybody. And when you propose me a solution, I ask you, what are you trying to solve? Okay. The problem I see is that Anglophones have a serious problem. They're marginalized. The management of the diversity in the country has been disastrous, and it has brought us to where we are today. So I think the government is the solution. I think we're in a state of state capture, where the state and its resources have been captured by a few oligarchs, and they bring the country dry. So I want to change that government because I think that is the solution. I understand the Ambazonians, as you've mentioned them, because they are talking to the state and they're not listening. They have even gone further and saying that, you know, Cameroon is one and indivisible, is our way or the highway. So I can understand their frustration. But I'm saying that the problem is the government. It's the government you need to change and not the country.
So Barrister, I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
So you're talking about oligarchs, you know, that have taken the country hostage.
Yeah.
But what about those who say that you have been in this government? Have you been part of the government? You were the bâtonnier?
Well, I mean, you know, I was a lawyer, and I still am. Okay. I was the head of the bar association for what, 6 years, 5 to 6 years. I've never been in government. Okay. I'm a lawyer. I've done cases for the government, as I've done cases for criminals who were sentenced. So that's what I do. And anyway, serving the government is not serving anybody. It's serving the people. So I saved the embassy in London from being sold. I was protecting the people's property. So I think that, you know, people shouldn't confuse stuff. It is true that with the system we have today, the government is confused with individuals. Because I keep saying what we have in Cameroon today is a government for the government by the government. The people do not figure. We have to change that, where the people feel that they own the country. Corruption also, because people see themselves as different from the government. So they will steal from it. And so it is important now that we know that the government is government for the people. So I don't feel that doing government cases or holding briefs is being part of the system. You don't know, not at all. I've never been in government. It doesn't mean that I've not been asked. Okay. I've never been, no.
Okay, so you have an SDF background. You come out from the background of the SDF. You're a former SDF member.
Yes. Yeah.
Because one of the questions I had from community members was that some critics see your candidacy as a distraction, seeking to remove votes from the SDF. Yeah. Actually, some people even went as far as saying that you actually, because they said you're very close to the president. I'm not sure how that is true, Mr. Paul Biya. I think your father...
Well, my father was vice president. Of course, President Paul Biya was secretary general in the presidency. They worked in government, you know. Well, you know, my father had his choices, which he made. He's Solomon Ndua and Akere Muna, so really, you know, I don't go around poking around to find out whose parent was what before I make my opinion about who they are. So that I'm a distraction, please, they should take a look at what I've done internationally. I'm not a distraction.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, I've worked with all the institutions you can think of, be it the UN, be it the World Bank, be it with the IMF, be it with African Development Bank, with the African Union, be with the peer review mechanism, and currently I'm the head of the vetting committee of the International Athletics Federation, which is a worldwide organism, and I'm looking at integrity. So a distraction, I don't think so. I think that what I'm trying to do is use my background and the connections I have to put pressure on our system so it can mutate.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So there you have it. So staying with the opposition party, if we look at other countries like Ghana, for example, that had to form a coalition to unseat the sitting president. If you want to look at Cameroon and the CPDM structure and how long our president has been, you have those political minds that think that the opposition has to form a coalition to be able to have the infrastructure to unseat the president. So are you in talks with other opposition?
Well, listen, there's no doubt that we are stronger together, okay? And that unity is strength. There's no doubt about that. And from the very first day that I announced I was going to run for office, I did say clearly that when we come to a point where there's a candidate who is in a better position to cause us to win, I will yield. And I don't say this as a rules or to be smart. Those who have followed my own career know very well that the first time I tried to be president of the Bar Association, I had campaigned well. I had done all my work. And on the eve of the elections, Barrister Senze told me he wanted to run. He was a senior. So I said, you know what? If you want to run, I will cede. I will yield for you. After I had canvassed everybody the eve of the elections. And I did. So I have a history of somebody who could yield for somebody else for a better cause. And these elections, I keep saying, is so important that it's larger than any individual. So I don't have any problem with that, no.
Okay, nice to know. So you were the bâtonnier or the head of the Bar Association.
And also the head of the Pan-African Lawyers Union, yeah.
Okay, can you tell us some of your achievements during your tenure? How long were you the head of the Bar Association?
Well, about 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
Or 4 to 5 years, I can't. It's a two terms, 2 times 2, okay. But it, you know, organizing elections and getting a date, so maybe about 5 years.
Okay.
Well, listen, when I took over the Bar Association, there was no bar office, the bar wasn't computerized, there was no headquarters in Yaoundé, but lawyers didn't have ID cards, and the bar was divided because it was coming out from a period of multipartism. And there was a huge ethnic tussle in the bar. And I created something known as the Rainbow Coalition that really permitted the bar to form a very uniform group, a professional group. I increased the bar for ethics, and the largest number of lawyers who were struck off the bar was under my tenure. I made sure there was a head office. I got the bar involved in social work. I created what was known as legal first aid centers at every court of appeal. The first ones were in Yaoundé, in Kumba, and Bamenda. The idea was that when somebody goes to court and he doesn't know what's happening, he can go to this center where there were lawyers who are on duty, on call, and ask them what's happening. Because we have a system which is inherited from a colonial process. People come from villages, they don't know what's happening, they don't know what a sentence means, they don't know what a suspended sentence means, they have a child who's locked up, they don't have any advice, they don't have the money to pay. So I made sure that lawyers were there to assist them in that area. So I did, there was the first, I mean, we supported, the first one created in Yaoundé was sponsored by the Canadians, I think. The next one was sponsored by the British, the one in Kumba and in Bamenda. So you see, and I got lawyers to understand that, you know, we also have a duty to give back to society and help them, because that's what it's all about. Yes, we are lawyers to be paid, but you know, we have a huge role to play in social justice. I did that. And I got the bar very international. At international conventions, I got the amount of international meetings in Yaoundé to get the lawyers in our country to think out of Cameroon. And further, which is important, we were the founding members of the Pan-African Lawyers Union, and I became the second president of the Pan-African Lawyers Union. So I think I got the bar international. I make sure the ethics was at a higher level. I made sure that people forgot about their divisions. And well, I left because I couldn't change the constitution to have a longer term. So, I mean, to tell you how coherent what we did was, every single leader of the Bar Association till this date all worked in my council. So I think that tells this story about what I did at the bar, yes. So
I'm going to stay with the Cameroon Bar Association. So correct. It's the Cameroon English-speaking lawyers, is there something?
Well, and the Cameroon English-speaking Lawyers Union, which was common law lawyers.
The common law lawyers, yeah.
The very first one, I was one of the founding members myself, Mrs. Woleji, and Barrister Fondufe, and others. We did, and Forechi and others. We did create the first Tabetando and others. We did actually create the first common law lawyers union. So
were you part of the recent agitation that they had, the strike?
No. Well, then the common law lawyers union we're talking about is association. It was things of the late 90s and early 200. So, but what happened afterwards, which was the Northwest Lawyers Union and the Southwest Lawyers Union, is something else. So I'm practicing in Yaoundé, so it was these are associations that were regional based. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, because I was going to ask you about the grievances that they have, and I want to talk.
The grievances that I had are national. We have a bijural system, which means we have two legal systems sitting side by side: the common law system, and one which is based on the Napoleonic Civil Code.
Which I have a question about that. I'm happy that you said that, because 50 years post-independence. Mm-hmm. So the English section of Cameroon were ruled by the common law, which, if my research is correct, is based on the British commoners, because the nobility have a different set of laws. And the common law is for the British commoners. That's what we're using in the English section of the...
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
It's like saying the Napoleonic Code was something used for. No. I think that's the origin of the name.
Okay.
But the legal system in England is the common law system. It just means that it's a system which is based on decided cases.
Okay, which I have a question for you, because being one of our stellar lawyers in the country, do you think that we have been done a disservice by not bringing the colonial system of Cameroon, the legal system of Cameroon, out of colonization? You know, because...
I get your point. Are you saying that we are allowing ourselves to be shackled by colonial past?
Because some of these problems that we're experiencing are remnants of colonization, which with intellectual minds that we have, if we had looked... I mean, are you thinking of a... Or can we have a legacy of great minds, legal, international minds by yourself, by removing colonization from our legal system? So then we're not going to have any Napoleonic or... we just have our Cameroonian...
We should start by saying the legal functioning we have, we got from the colonialists. People still wear the wig and gown to go to court. That's as basic as it is. That's a fact. I think you don't just discard a system because it's colonial. If it's effective and works well, I don't see what's wrong with that. Okay? So it is with music.
So you would, this current system, you think is effective?
I'm not there yet.
Okay.
So the problem is not the colonial system. The problem is assimilation. Should we leave one colonial system for the other? That's the problem. Should the common law system totally be taken over by a different system? That's the question.
I say let's reject both. We need to develop our local... I'm just speaking as I'm not a legal mind or anything, just as a Pan-Africanist who has rejected colonization and everything that it has. We have, because before the white man came to Cameroon, we had laws.
True.
We didn't have prisons. We had systems. We were in harmony. So why have we have great legal minds? Well, I'm sitting in front of one. Why has our local legal system not been taken into scholarship to develop, so we can because these problems, you know...
Well, that you're putting to question the process of evolution. I think that there's a process that we have to evolve towards. When we do have a mastery of our own system. Here we are grappling with, should it be a francophone or anglophone system?
But we're 50 years after independence. 50 years after independence.
How many more years do we have?
Exactly. How many more years do we need?
No. How many more years do we have? I don't think that you can see how far we have gone by how far we have traveled. The path is longer. All we have to do, under your watch and under my watch, we have to make sure that today we do the best we can to advance the purpose. Our system, it's evolving. We are taking in customary law. You have alkali courts, and we have courts that will try you based on our traditional rules and regulations. It's more formalized. You know, I don't need to walk from Douala to Yaoundé just because my ancestors did. If there's a plane, why not take a plane? So I think these are all things we should understand. But where I think we have failed is the fact that we didn't take over what the Germans did. The Germans had chosen 5 languages. In Northwest, they did Bali. In Southwest, they did Douala. When I was going to school, I used a book called Idiwana Jombe, The Key of the Door. That was my book. I learned Douala in primary school. In the North, it was Fufude. I think in the South and Center, it was Bulu. And then in Bali, it was Northwest. And then I think in the Bamileke land, it was what is spoken by the Bafa. About 5 languages. Instead of having the 200 and odd we have now. If we had persisted that and caused those languages to be taught in schools, instead of Spanish, and now they are teaching Chinese and stuff like that, we have to make sure that anybody going to school learns at least one national language. That is the beginning of what you're saying. So when we understand our own national language, then we can more exploit the culture. We can see what we can recuperate from our past to be stronger in the future.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a last question on the law, on the lawyers, and then we're going to move on to your political manifesto.
Yeah.
What do you think about, I mean, the current stalemate in Cameroon, the political stalemate, it started with the lawyers. And
teachers, yeah.
right, and then we are where we are. So the struggle was kind of like usurped, like kind of taken over by forces that we don't quite understand right now. So do you think, is in your opinion, is that like responsible? Because I believe in responsible activism, being responsible. Right now we haven't achieved much in terms of the struggle, but we have lost so much in terms of life, infrastructure,
correct.
businesses.
That is sad.
Right. So what is your take on
I know
this?
because when I say I know, it's because I've seen. On the legal side, our chambers is doing over 80 cases pro bono. We have 4 lawyers full-time in court, for the cases of 80 people, paying all the costs of people. We're doing that. We've been doing it for the past 2 years. So I know. Suffering, I've been to Cameroon. I've seen houses burnt. I've seen a city of 6,000 people reduced to 5 or 10 people. That's sad. I've seen people who built houses. It was their pride in all their life. All this down to ashes. So I know they're hurting. I know what people are doing. I've seen families of 4 people embarrassed because the kids can't go to school. And I've seen families of rich people in the same areas send their kids to Ghana, to Nigeria, to other provinces. And I've seen the level of social injustice increase. And this is because of a lack of strategy. There's one thing having a complaint. There's one thing understanding how you can solve the problem. Showing how much trouble you can cause is not the solution. Granted, on the government side, being totally insensible to the cry for people is unacceptable. You can't be planning to have a united country and you treat the citizens differently. You can't practice collective punishment because one military officer is killed. You burn down a whole village. You can't do that. So I think we are in a position where we have people who have been pushed against the wall and they are desperate. And in their desperation, they have been consumed by anger. And when you're angry, you don't have a strategy because you're just reacting and trying to inflict hurt on the other person.
So I'm going to have a follow-up question. You said the people are treated differently. Can you give an example, like how? What are you referring to when you say that the government
Well,
treats
you know,
when
they cut the internet, it was cut only in the Anglophone provinces.
Okay.
The kind of repression we are seeing.
Well, that was because that's where all the Trump... I'm saying this because you have those who say that, I mean, the government of Cameroon is where they are. They're not in touch with anybody else. You have a lot of suffering from the French-speaking areas, you know, who are suffering, who are marginalized. I grew up in the French-speaking area. I was marginalized as much as possible. So, as you said, the problem is you have oligarchs that have taken over the system. You have a few families that have held the country hostage. It has nothing to do with, and some people, that I was asking you the question before, saying that, oh, the Munas again, you know, are saying, you know, a part of that. So it wasn't really like they're treating Anglophone separately or treating Francophone separately, but cutting off the internet, I'm thinking, I'm just playing the devil's advocate here. That was to minimize loss of life, because this is how it was being spread. The demonstration was the government's way of trying to mitigate the problem and reduce loss of life.
I mean, well, you know, that's an interpretation of good faith. But we have a government that specializes in opacity, in hiding stuff, in not allowing freedom to information, in distorting information. I was hauled in by the gendarmes. I was called in and interrogated, and they asked me, a lawyer of 40 years standing, asking me questions, are you a secessionist? And trying to make me believe. I mean, there are people who have been standing for 12 years in jail for having a piece of paper in their pocket that says don't go to work on Monday. That's ridiculous. You cannot get somebody all the way from Bamenda and come and try him in Yaoundé in a court that speaks French. I think that, you know, let's be, it is what's happening. The military tribunal, you know, I've been there. The proceedings are in French. Of course you will speak English. at the risk of them not understanding you fully. So I think, you know, it is a situation where the government itself realizes that diversity has been mismanaged. Its answer is the bilingual and bicultural commission has been created. So we have passed the position where anybody can affirm that we're not inequalities. The government itself is employing common law magistrates to be trained. The government itself is trying to regularize Anglophone education. The government itself is revising the Supreme Court to make sure that this happens. That's a recognition of the fact that things were not done. The government itself is now translating certain laws that were never translated. This is a recognition of the fact that there were inequalities. But that being said, we have a government that is not trying to solve a problem.
Okay. Thank you, Barrister. We're going to move on. One more question before we dive into the manifesto, especially because we live here. We have a president right now, Donald Trump, who is embroiled in legal issues ever since he took over. And there were reports on social media that your family had a legal matter. Are you willing to give us, is this true? Are you willing to give us a roundup?
It's a laughable case for the simple reason that my sister, she has the right to go to court and ask for the estate of my father to be looked into and divided, whatever. That's her right. But it's laughable because, you know, there's an allegation of a signature being falsified in a family meeting that held in 2002.
By you? You falsified the signature?
Well, I don't know. That's what they are claiming. But, you know, a family meeting of 7 people that said that my brother was now designated as my eldest brother, who is now, blessed me, my brother Daniel, was now designated as the administrator of the estate. And there were 7 people. Now, when I say it's laughable, it's really laughable. Why should you, in a meeting with your 7 people, falsify the signature of 1 person? Why should it be me, not any of the other 6? It might have been my late brother because he was the person who was named administrator. And guess what? That meeting was held to give my brother the authorization to sign in the bank for my sister to have a loan. So, therefore, I falsified the signature for my brother Daniel to be named estate manager in a situation we already had a majority for my sister to get her loan. Don't this sound stupid?
So this is not going to be a distraction?
Oh, of course not. I mean, you know, this is a matter engineered by those who think that I can be affected by that. And people know that the biggest capital I have is my integrity worldwide. Jeune Afrique, they call me so prop. I was the president of TI in Cameroon. I was vice chair of TI. And I tend to practice what I preach. When I announced I was going to be a candidate, I was chairman of the board of EcoBank. I resigned to avoid conflict of interest. I was chair of the International Anti-Corruption Council. I resigned to avoid conflict of interest. I'm resigning my job as Sanctions Commissioner of the African Development Bank to avoid conflict of interest. I've stepped down from 1 or 2 other positions to avoid conflict of interest. From 2005, as vice chair of TI, I've always declared my assets. So if you go to the TI website, from 2005, you see my declaration of assets. So, you know, what I'm talking about is what I do. Okay, so people feel that if they're going to get me, you know, that's where they're going to get me. But I think, you know, this will fizzle out. To manage affairs in a country today, you have to deal with the reality. The reality in Cameroon is one. We have 2 macro cultures, the Anglophone culture and the Francophone culture. And if you decide that we should go towards an Anglophone culture, we will not be the first. Nyerere did that in Tanzania. He said, you know what? This language thing is colonialism. Let's talk Swahili. So if you go now to Tanzania, there is a group of, because he stopped it. There's an age bracket in Tanzania where the people can hardly speak English. You take a taxi driver, he doesn't understand English very well. Because you realize that what? The guys couldn't get documents to read, they didn't have access to modern science, a lot of things were happening, and they were out of it. So, our culture is important to empower us, to give us an identity, but our culture cannot be used to blind us to the point where we don't move with the progress of the universe. So I agree with you that colonialism had this trick of trying to make us feel as people who came from nowhere. We have to be able to affirm that we have our own past. There's things that are valuable. I mean, when you go to Ghana, you look at the presidency, it's been in the form of a stool. That's the president. If you go to Rwanda, the convention center, it's been in the form of a hut, Rwandan hut. You know, these are things that you can affirm. I think there are things we could do. You know, not like in Cameroon where we're importing a whole stadium to build, put up in Yaoundé. That's what we excel in. So I'm saying that we can affirm our culture to promote our identity and make Cameroonians more confident, but not to import other cultures to to destroy our identity as if we came from nowhere. From that point, I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm happy that you said that, because Nyobe
yes.
had said that if we always use colonization as our bedrock, it's going to give us problems that would never finish. That's why he had said that we should find those languages that you had said before we had independence. Because if we always use colonization as a point of reference, it's always going to bring issues. If we want to say that we're going to have French and English because that's what we already have, but I'm saying I'm not talking about.
I get the point.
1600 or.
Do you know in what language you wrote that?
Probably, I'm not sure, but I'm thinking maybe
well, he wrote it in French.
He
wrote it in French.
Okay.
There you go. I'm just saying that, you know, we have strong cultures. We have values in our culture that we can bring back. And we have things in our culture that you cannot also accept today. You cannot accept the fact that because somebody is a woman, they cannot inherit, or that the bride price has to be fixed, or that marriages have to be arranged, or female circumcision. Those are all tradition. Or that people are treated differently. It's all tradition.
Okay, so
I'm saying that the times there are changing, as Bob Dylan used to sing, but I think that we have a rare opportunity of having a menu, and it's for us to tick that can cause us to have a superb meal for our countries. Yes.
So talking about that menu, what is your main your signature change that you want to bring? Do you plan on bringing on change or?
Well, listen, the country has been functioning on the constitution that was made to serve one person, that's the leader. We have to come to a situation where we have a country that has the people at the center of it. So we're going to have that's why I say a new republic. We're going to have a new constitution. We're going to have new institutions. We're going to have social justice. I keep telling people that, you know, I'm a Christian, maybe you're Muslim. There are three important things you find either in the Quran or in the Bible: teaching, healing, and judging. So, in every country, if the justice system works, if the health system works, the education system works, you have at least one guarantee, that the poorest of the poor have a fair shake. Then from then on, you can look at the infrastructure. And look at, of course, the roads and all that. You look at how you can enhance development. So how you can adjust the education system so it serves people of today. The high rate of youth unemployment is, we are just going towards disaster. Every report on the crisis of Boko Haram says it is because of the economic problems. Nobody is listening, you know. And, you know, and nobody sits down and takes a consideration. Even those who are complaining about Northwest and Southwest, they forget that the schools in Northwest and Southwest were being overwhelmingly peopled by the Francophones, who paid fees in Bamenda or in Limbe, whose parents came for weekend and stayed in the hotels there, who spent money in those parts. And these things drove those economies. So I think that we should think differently. And, you know, to answer your question, therefore, social justice, infrastructure, and a system that always asks the question, is the citizen at the heart of it? Basically, I like something President Banda, the lady of Malawi, said. He said, a president and a country must be about a love story.
So Barrister Akere is here to meet the community. After this interview, we're going to head over to Greenbelt, where he's going to meet Cameroonians in the DMV. And Barrister, as you know, they say all politics is local. So you're coming to the diaspora to meet Cameroonians in the diaspora. So I'm going to top issues for Cameroonians in the diaspora. Dual citizenship, where do you stand on that?
Well, that's the first thing I said when I declared. I said you're born Cameroonian. And nobody, and I mean nobody, can take that away from you. Everything else is additional. So the choice of nationality is that of a Cameroonian. He can choose to be Russian, Chinese, British, American afterwards, but at the basis of it, he remains Cameroonian. And there is no business of you losing a nationality, except you choose to stop being Cameroonian by a procedure. And the procedure will be the same if you decide that you want to become Cameroonian again. So I think that the argument of, I don't want to say dual, you can be multi-citizenship. But I think that the basis is that a Cameroonian born stays a Cameroonian till his last days, regardless of whatever nationality he chooses. So
we're running out of time. We have 1 minute left. How about security? Some of the things that is on the minds of Cameroonians in the diaspora, when they go back home, what are you going to do once you get to Etudi as president to make sure that security in the country is better than it is today? Well,
listen, the government thinks that it can have a security system that is done on the back of the citizens. The most efficient security system is if there's a relationship, if they are accomplices, that they work together to protect society and the facilities that they have. But you cannot have a security system which is based on the horse and the rider. It doesn't work that way. I think you have to be a security which is a partnership between the forces of law and order and the citizens, as you have here in the States when they promote this relationship between the forces. I mean, each time I get on the plane here in the States, I'm really touched by the way they respect the soldiers, the veterans. They board the plane first. I was in first class with the guy who stood up to give his place to a young soldier and stuff like that. It's amazing.
Oh, you flew first class coming over here?
No, well, yeah, of course. I can fly the class I can afford.
Yes, of course.
After 40 years as a lawyer,
I think you do, especially as a lawyer, because lawyers are. So is there anything you're going to do specifically to make, that's different, that is not being done now? Do you have any policies, anything that you're going to do differently? I know that you did say that there need to be a partnership between law enforcement and the citizen, but what concrete thing can you tell us?
Well, listen, I think that, many reports have said that the level of corruption is very high. And one of the biggest ills in our country is corruption and governance. And that's going to be the first point I'll make. I'll make sure that for corruption, tolerance is zero. If you go to the country, look at the exams do with police, customs, the army, ENAM and stuff, loaded with candidates. Is it because it's the only profession? No, of course. The guys are gunning to be corrupt. And they pay high amounts to go into those schools. All that has to end.
So you're going to do another Opération Épervier?
No. You just have to fix the system. There's no thing to do. I mean, the question about all this arrest, the question is how much money do you get? Or as the Liberians say, where the money
So how will you fix the system? When you say we're going to fix the system, what can you tell us? How do you plan to do that, to fix the system?
Well, it's easy. You just have the laws and make sure they're enforced uniformly. Not like you have a situation where two people do commit an offense, one is in jail, one is not. Don't make sense. Where you appear to be tolerant. Some of the people in jail were ministers, but they were arrested for stuff they did before they became minister. The question is, how did they become minister? So when I say fixing the system, that's what I mean. And I would, when people steal, I would attach more importance in recovering what they have taken than locking them up. Locking them up, it costs the country money. I mean, the amount of people they have arrested, I don't think the country has the capacity to try them all. Even in the military tribunal, the cases they're doing with Anglophones, they're close to 1,000 locked up. How long will it take? How will they manage that? We are driving the country to an impossible position. So you have to look at alternative means that will cause you to be able to release the energy of Cameroonians so they can go forward.
So for the last question of today, another thing that is on the minds of Cameroonians in the diaspora when they come back and try to do investments, open businesses, there's a lot of resistance, and it's difficult to navigate. What, once you get to it, as a president of Cameroon?
Well, I've said it. I've said that, you know, many other African countries benefit so much from the diaspora, apart from Cameroon. If you see any Cameroonian in the diaspora, it is from their own effort. No help from the country, no promotion by the country. Anyone you choose, myself, I functioned very much in international organizations. I had no assistance from the country. People like Vera Songwe at the Economic Commission, people in the World Bank, people in the UNDP, people, you know, who have functioned very highly, yourself, and a lot of people who have functioned, is by their own sweat. And we have to have a system that permits the country to benefit from this wealth of intellect and finances of the diaspora. And that's why I've said that at least 30% of contracts on consultation, where you, instead of taking people who are non-Cameroon to come and do, which is examining and proposing, it has to be the diaspora, the Cameroon diaspora. And that in tendering and stuff like that, the diaspora should be given a position of privilege so they can integrate back into the country.
Barrister, thank you so much for stopping by for us to zoom in. Yeah. You have your team is calling that they have to go. Barrister has a very tight schedule, so we really appreciate him.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us as we zoom in today. Bye.